Hello, investors and traders, and welcome to the weekly market report. I'm AJ Monte. Before we get into the charts, just be ready because I'm going to be putting out a lot of content here. I'll be talking about oil, I'll be talking about silver, I'll be talking about SpaceX, so you might want to take some notes on that. And I also want to go and set some new targets on the major market ETFs. This is a one-year daily candle chart of DIA, which is the Dow Jones Industrial Average ETF. And you can see here that we hit my downside target from last week's report perfectly right here. And now today, while the markets are up, as I'm recording, the markets are up about 350 points. We're selling off from the highs of the day, but you have to understand that that candle right there is a shooting star. It's a long shadow on top of that small body candle, and that generally leads to lower prices. The shooting stars are one of the four favorites that I look at, and they are one of the most reliable bearish signals out there. In addition to that, you can see we have this long stretch of green in the volume, but the volume is dropping on the way down. I've talked about this so many times and how volume is a leading indicator. When the volume is going down as the price is going up, that is bearish because it's telling us the buyers are running out of momentum. So I'm going right back down to the previous target area right here, which is going to be close to the moving average. I think tomorrow we'll start to see some red candles. Downside target on DIA is 514.35. Now, one of the reasons the market was up so big today, and those who subscribe to the NodLive news feed will already know this, is that the GDP numbers came in very strong, and the labor market is looking much, much better with the initial jobless claims, about 215,000 versus 225,000 expected. You see that right down there. Now, the NodLive news feed will get you this news quicker than any other service, including Bloomberg. So if you're interested in, this is the least expensive news service that we have, but if you're interested in getting this yourself, then just take your phone and put the camera on the scan code right there, and it'll lead you right to the 15-day trial for the NodLive news feed. So in addition to that, I'll be talking about SpaceX here in a moment, because this also came out through the NodLive news feed as this report from Leverage Shares came out, and we reposted this on SpaceX being included in the Nasdaq 100. So this is all going to happen. I believe it's going to be July 7th. And make sure you put that on your calendar, because this is a big event that I think is going to be, or turn out to be, one of the greatest threats in the market as they fast track this SpaceX IPO to be included in a major market index. So I think this is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen happen in my career, with the regulators allowing this to happen. SpaceX, in my opinion, is already a failed IPO. Again, we'll get to that looking at the chart. But you're going to see that that will ultimately put a lot of pressure on the general markets, as funds will be required to add the SpaceX to the positions, but they'll be also forced to sell possibly other mega cap stocks to balance out the portfolio for the SpaceX inclusion. And so this is something you got to keep an eye on, and I think it's going to ultimately lead us to much lower prices in the general markets, particularly the Nasdaq. You'll look at the cues here in a minute, so keep that in mind. IWM has a red candle here known as a spinning top. Spinning tops usually show up at pivot points. All right, you see a spinning top right here. There was the pivot point. Here's the spinning top right before it pivoted lower. You see that? Here's another spinning top. Here's a spinning top. We got another spinning top. Now, those are not leading indicators. They're just kind of like a flag that you're going to pay attention to. And so while I still have a downside target on IWM way down here at 275.86 for the shorter term option traders, I'm going to give you another target for the short term option traders right there. I'm going to raise that to 295. So we'll get rid of those pennies right there and make that 295. So keep an eye on that. If you're brand new to this report, understand that I put my targets out each and every week and I keep track of those. And we have a very, very strong percentage of target hits. Over 82% of our targets wind up hitting over time. And so to my knowledge, I don't think there's anyone out there that has that kind of a track record. And if you happen to know anyone that has that strong of an ability to forecast price action, please introduce them to us. We'd love to collaborate. Like minds coming together like that could create a force to be reckoned with. So we're always interested in hearing from people that have good, strong track records with forecasting the markets. And make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you're notified when the alerts come out. So you hit that little notification bell at the top of our YouTube page and you'll get the text message that the report is going out. And I'm recording these on Thursday while the markets are open. We moved that from Friday after the close to Thursday while the market's open, so people have time to react on Thursday, and then they have all day Friday to take action. So I think tomorrow you're going to start to see some red candles coming in before the weekend, and then of course we have the holiday weekend coming up where people are going to be taking off, and I think you'll have a thinly traded market to contend with, as a thinly traded market with lower volume tends to be the weeks that we see more manipulation up and down. Speaking of which, and I'm going to hop right to Micron. If you had a chance to watch our live report, I said they most likely sell into Micron on the opening after this big gap up. And look at that. That's exactly what they did. You see that red candle? Obviously, it's up 15% on the good news from earnings, but that is a hanging man candle. So we've got, look at this. If this isn't enough evidence for you, here's a hanging man candle. That's very bearish, by the way. It dropped. Here's a hanging man candle. What happened? It gapped down. Here's another hanging man candle. What do you think's going to happen? Well, I don't know if it's going to gap down, but I think it's definitely going to trade down. So, you know what? For the record here, here's what we're going to do. First time, I'm going to go away from the major market ETFs. I'm going to give you a forecast on Micron down here to fill the gap at 1,114 exact. I think that gap is going to fill down there. So for you option traders that are daring enough to trade this institutionally controlled stock, then go for it. But I think we're going to see that drop, and as a result, that's going to bring the tech sector right back down. That's another reason why we're up, because the strong earnings report has pushed the whole Nasdaq and the tech sector up. All right, so let's get back on track. Looking at the Qs right here, we hit the downside target perfectly at 722. We bounced here today, and the high is right at that 20-period moving average. So I think we're coming right back down to here. Now, why did I drop it right there? Because it's in between this support level and just past this support level right here. Look down below. You see the CCI down there? Even though we have an up day, the CCI is pivoting, but look at the stochastic. You see the conflict right there? One indicator is going up, the other indicator is going down. And we have a drop in volume on this uptick in the Qs. So remember what I said about the drop in volume on the way up? That's bearish. So I'm going to raise that to get rid of these pennies again. They annoy the heck out of me. So I'm going to 701 on that one for the Qs. Keep an eye on that, because you can see we're doing a good job with hitting targets. These are still open, by the way, but look back at the year and you can see that all of these targets, there's some pretty big up targets here. Then we accelerated the target here. That was hit. That hit. This one was a two-parter, hit on the upside, hit on the downside, took a little while there. Another two-parter here. There's a target, hit. You see, so the majority of these targets do hit. I do have some open targets way down here. This one may not hit, and that's not unusual for targets not to hit. But remember, the majority of the targets are hitting, and that tells us that the technical charts are giving us good, strong signals. So again, downside target for the Qs is going to be 701. Looking at SPY, you can see here that we hit the downside target perfectly right there at 736. Now, the S&P is up, but not by much. I would not be surprised to see the S&P down on the day by the close of the day. This is a hanging man again right there. So I'm going to go slightly lower to test this low down here. I'll leave this up here temporarily as a support level, but I have my downside target there. I'm going to lower that just a little bit to 726. Now let me show you why I think that is going to go lower, and that's based on the VIX analysis. Remember what I said on the midweek report yesterday? I said the gap will most likely fill right here. Guess what happened this morning? The gap filled. 100% of gaps fill on the VIX. We still have an open gap way above here, but I'm going to tell you right now that 80% of the time after gaps fill in general, prices reverse and go the other way. So we hit this upside target right here on the VIX, and I'm going to go right back up and slightly higher on the VIX right there with my other forecast up there. I'm going to raise that even to 21. So here it is trading under 19. I'm putting an upside target on 21. You option traders, you trade the VIX. I think you could have a field day with that one if you're managing risk properly and picking the longer term options. I would certainly, this is not advice, I'm just telling you how I would trade the VIX. I would certainly not be buying short-term options. That's almost a guaranteed way to lose money on the VIX by buying the short-term options. You got to give yourself some time for those targets to hit. Hence the reason why I think we're going to 21, and you could see that even before July 4th. So fasten your seatbelt on that one. Remember, a bullish VIX is bearish for the S&P. See, so my VIX forecast is confirming my downside target for SPY at 726. Now let's hop to SpaceX. I'm going to talk about oil, and I'm going to talk about silver as well. SPCX, again, if you had a chance to watch the midweek report, I put a downside target on SPX at 147. This morning, it got down to 150 and change, and I think it's going to go lower from here. Why is that? Because here is another bearish engulfing candle showing up on SpaceX in just about a week and a half. This is the last time we had a bearish engulfing on SpaceX. What happened after that? It dropped. This next bearish engulfing, I think, is going to lead the price lower even after that target hits. And that's what I was referring to when I said that it's dangerous that SPX is being added to Nasdaq 100 because it's not proven itself at the higher levels. In fact, once the lockup window is open, you're going to have more and more selling pressure coming in intervals rather than all at once when they normally open up a locked window for the IPO traders. So the pressure, I think, is going to continue to be on SpaceX, which we know now is going to continue to put pressure on the Nasdaq 100, which could put pressure in the general markets overall as the dominoes start to go down. Now, I want to talk a little bit about oil. Again, if you followed the midweek report, you knew that I had a gap support level down here at 67.83. And I said once we bounce or pivot off of that support level, I think we're going to wind up here in the low to mid 80s. I think we're going to see oil or crude right here. This is a crude futures for the August contract. I think you're going to see that start to go up, not down like many people are expecting. So that too will put pressure on the market. Right now, speaking of pressure, the dollar is under pressure. We've got a bearish engulfing candle on the dollar. When the dollar goes down, silver goes up. Now, I know I'm going quickly, but I want you at the beginning. Take good notes here if you have to go listen to the recording. But if the dollar goes down like I think it will, SLV and the silver miners especially will go up. So what I'm doing is I'm going to be putting this out on X, but I'm going to be including my hashtag AJSLV sign so that you can track this along the way. I'm going to tell you right now what I've done with my silver position. I sold the July 24 expiration. So July 24th, I sold the $58 calls. Follow me here. We're doing the wheel strategy on SLV. What is the wheel? The wheel strategy is when you buy the stock and sell calls, or you could even start off by selling puts. And each time at expiration, when the options that you sold expire, you go sell another option and collect more money. That's what we're doing at the wheel strategy. So going back to my strategy and what I've done, I sold the July 24th $58 calls. I collected money with that sale of the calls. What do you think I did with that cash? I put it right back in and added to my SLV position. And right now, that candle is looking very bullish. We got a half signal, but that's also a hammer candle. Hammer candles are bullish. It's the opposite of what you'd see in a shooting star. And the oscillators are pivoting, and the stochastic is starting to hinge. The drop in volume on the way down. Remember what I said, the drop in volume on the way up. Drop in volume on the way up is bearish. A drop in volume on the way down, like we're seeing here, is bullish because it's telling us that the sellers are losing momentum. And if you look at all this red here, it's finally being broken by this green volume bar. Look at that. We got 7 red in a row. We got the green. So we got our sights set for silver to go higher at these levels. Stay tuned to my X page, and I'll keep you posted on all the other adjustments that I'm doing to my SLV position so you can follow along. Folks, I'm having a great time doing these videos. I hope you enjoy them. If you do enjoy them, subscribe, hit the notification bell, add comments. Let us know where you're dialing in from. We had a wide variety of people in the audience coming from different parts of the world. We love to know where you're coming from. Type that in the comments field. Let us know how you're doing and what you'd like to see from me on these reports, and we'll do our best to cater to your needs. So for now, you have a good rest of the week, and we'll talk to you on the next report. Take care.
In a world of endless data, where every second counts, introducing NodLive, your professional compass in the chaos of the stock market. NodLive cuts through the noise. Stay ahead with NodLive.